you over just a moment to Exodus chapter 3. I prayed about what to share today, and I'm not going to share very long. We might sing one more song at the end. We'll see. We'll see what God wants to do. I don't want to get in His way today. I really have a very simple message, so it's not going to take me long. And if there's any Baptists in the house, they really like to hear that. So... Exodus 3, verse 1. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro. Any Jethros in the house today? All right. The priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness. Now we know what led up to this. Moses was raised in the house of Pharaoh after an ordinance that they were going to kill the firstborn. His mother hid him in the river, and Pharaoh's daughter found him and rescued Moses out of the river. And then actually Moses' real mom kind of hid incognito and became his kind of a adopted mom, or kind of mom. It kind of got to raise him, help raise him, but as recommendation. But so Moses is raised in the house of Pharaoh, and then sees one of his own kind, one of his own being abused, and he takes it back out on one of the Egyptians and kills one of the Egyptians, and then flees for fear of his life into the wilderness, and now is in the wilderness for 40 years. And so now Moses is in hiding. He has committed a sin that he believes he will never be able to recover from. Maybe in your life you have been at that place before, where you're in a place of hiding, a place of shame, a place you don't feel like you could ever recover from what has happened in your life. Maybe even today, maybe you come to church week in, week out, but there's something in a closet buried in your life that you feel like if you ever told anybody, it'd be over. There's something hidden. Moses is hiding now in the wilderness, keeping sheep. From the house of Pharaoh to keeping sheep on the backside of the wilderness. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. This is a familiar passage, I know. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. This wasn't holy ground for any other real reason other than the fact that God showed up. When God shows up in your life, the place is holy ground. Right here in Cottontown is holy ground. Right here where we are is holy ground. Because God is here. And now God's presence is what cleanses and purifies and makes it holy ground. And so he says, Moses, be aware now where you are. It's not just a place of hiding. It's not a place of secrecy any longer for you. The place you are standing is holy ground because Yahweh I am is here. I might preach after, I don't know. Okay. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him. Verse 5, and he said, I am the God of your father. So God identifies himself. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen, I've been watching the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I've been listening. Even in those moments where we wonder and we question, God, where are you? Why God? God says, I have seen and I have heard, and I've not forgotten. I know their sufferings. So he says, I've seen, I've heard, I know, and I have come. I love that. I've seen, I've heard, I know, and I've come to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them up out of the land to a good land and a broad land and a land flowing with milk and honey. He says, I'm coming to bring something better than where you've been. Sometimes we feel like all that we can do in this life to get by, just to struggle, just to grind and grit through this life is the best there is. And God shows up and he says, I've seen you, I've heard you, I'm showing up, I know, and I've got something better that this world cannot offer. When you find Jesus, and so most of you here will know what I mean. You really experience the freedom of Christ in your life. There is something that happens on the inside. And the world, there's nothing else that can explain it. No pill you can pop, no drink you can drink that will give you what Christ will give you, what the Holy Spirit will give you on the inside. That joy unspeakable and full of glory. The peace that passes all understanding. A hope like you've never had before. And a feeling that I am free. I'm free. Oh man, something inside of you. And you're like, I wish I could just bottle it up and sell it because I'd be a millionaire. But you can't. But I can lead you to the one that can. Oh, he's good. Oh, he's good. And now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I've also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. You don't have to take vengeance yourself. Sometimes we feel like we got to fight our battles, and that's just on Facebook. Let's just put that thing down for a while, you know. Man, we can't even handle drama on there. Lord, help our country. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh that you come. Oh, this is good. Verse 10. Come, that I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. You mean, God, you had a purpose and plan this whole time? You're sovereign? You're in control? Nothing escapes you? Yeah. Back to Pharaoh. But Moses said, oh, there's always a but, isn't there? But Moses said to God, who am I? I'm not qualified. I'm a stutterer. You know, God, my limitations. You know my weaknesses. You know my struggles, God. You know I'm the last person qualified to walk back in that house. Have you ever found it that your family and your closest friends are the hardest ones to share Jesus with sometimes? It's like, because they know all the baggage, right? You can fake it out there or not fake it, but you know what I'm saying. You don't have to reveal all of that to talk to somebody about Jesus. But you go talk to someone you're really close to about Jesus, and they're like, wait just a minute, you hypocrite. I'm like, yeah, well, there's two of us standing here talking that are hypocrites, you know, so I'm just trying to better my life. You want to better yours? I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that's... Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, but I will be with you. And this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they asked me. Moses is like, he's just like, okay, God, if I do this, and God just keeps saying, this is about me. This is about me, not you, Moses. The God of your fathers, he says, tell them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they asked me, what is his name? Which God? What do I tell them? How do I describe what I'm experiencing with the burning bush right now? What do I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say to this people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And God also said to Moses, say to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the one that Abraham followed, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever. Thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Today, maybe you know deep down, maybe you're the Moses on the backside of the wilderness hiding today. Maybe you're the Moses that you know God is calling out of the wilderness to share his truths, to share his word. You've got a purpose and a plan, and you know God is calling you. Maybe you're not quite there yet. Maybe you're in the wilderness today and you feel like there's something I'm not going to recover from. I'm not qualified. I'm not worthy. And so I'm just going to come to church. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to try to read the Bible and be a good person. I'm just going to get by. God has more for you than that. I want to read a story today. I told you I wouldn't be long. This is a story told by Ray Johnson in a book called The Hope Quotient that has done a lot of good for me. The pressure was off the charts and it kept getting worse. My first ever Little League baseball game. I'm the youngest guy on the team. I'm the least skilled on the team. And I'm the skinniest guy on the team. My uniform hung off my scrawny body like a rag. I played right field. Even when you're 8 years old, you know why you're in right field. You're there because never in the recorded history of Little League has a ball been hit to right field. I came up to bat 3 times, and I struck out every time. I never even touched the ball. It was the 7th and last inning. The bases were loaded, and our team was behind by 1 run. Y'all know where this is going. I was up. I stood in the on-deck circle and heard someone say, "Hey, coach, pinch hit." The coach came up to me and said, "Get up there and take your swing." I walked what seemed like 50 miles to home plate. I got up there, scared stiff. I was shaking. And the second I looked out at the pitcher's mound, I knew I had no shot. The pitcher stood at least 6 feet 9 inches tall and sported a full beard. At least that's how a 10-year-old looked to an 8-year-old. I stepped into the batter's box, still shaking. Everybody in the place was standing up and screaming. The noise was deafening. The pitcher wound up. I didn't even see his first pitch. Whoosh, I heard it come. Heard it hit the catcher's mitt. Heard the umpire yell, "Strike 1." The catcher tossed the ball back to the pitcher's mound. The pitcher wound up and threw his second pitch. Whoosh, I heard the ball hit the mitt. "Strike 2." As the ball went back to the mound one more time, I said to myself, I got to do something or this game's over. So I stepped up out of the batter's box, took my bat, hit my shoes with it. I didn't know why, but I'd seen others do it. Then I made a mistake. I looked around. Here's what I saw. 200 people on their side standing up and screaming for me to strike out and lose the game. And on the other side, I saw 200 people, including 60 of my relatives, standing up and screaming for me to get a hit and win the game. Some people were actually hanging on the fence and straddling the fence and screaming for me to get a hit and win the game. I had never felt pressure like that. I thought, if I don't get a hit, I will be a failure, and everybody that I know will know I'm a failure. Shaking, I stepped back into the box and said to myself, I got to get a hit. I'm going to get a hit. So the first time ever, I swung. I actually started swinging during the pitcher's windup. The pitch came in. I saw it. I swung as hard as I could. I missed. I heard the ball hit the catcher's mitt, and I heard the umpire say, "Strike 3. You're out. Game over." A huge cheer erupted from 200 people. Then I heard something else I will never forget. An audible groan from 200 other people. And I knew I'd failed. I had let everybody down. I was going to have to live with this failure for the rest of my life. I dropped the bat at home plate and started the longest walk of my life up the first base line to the dugout. The other team gathered and started chanting, 2, 4, 6, 8, who do we appreciate? Him. I walked by my opponents down to the dugout and heard my own teammates say, "Loser, idiot, you lost the game, moron." You know how sensitive 10-year-old boys are. I walked past them to the end of the dugout. I sat down, pulled my hat over my eyes, threw my jacket over my head, and sobbed for probably 15 minutes. Nobody came anywhere near me. It was the last game of the day. The dust was settling, and I could hear the gravel underneath the car tires as people pulled out of the parking lot. Then everything got quiet. I continued to sit there crying. I knew I would never, ever recover from this failure. Then I heard a noise from the pitcher's mound. A voice said, "Hey, son, get back up. The game ain't over." I didn't move. Then I heard it again louder. "Son, get back up. The game ain't over." I heard it a third time, louder still. "Son, get back up. The game ain't over." I pulled off my coat and pulled up my cap and looked out. It took a minute for my tear-filled eyes to readjust to the light. Sure enough, there on the pitcher's mound stood my dad. He was wearing a mitt, holding a ball, and he said again, "Son, get back up. The game ain't over." I looked and saw that none of my relatives had left. They were all in the field, waiting to play. A bunch of toddlers with their diapers hanging loose were waddling around in the infield. I got to stop so I can read. Aunt Emma stood out in left field. My blind Uncle Joe, trying to find right field, ran into the fence. They were all out there. My dad stood on the pitcher's mound calmly saying, "Hey, son, get back up. The game ain't over. Get back up." I looked toward home plate. My bat was still lying where I had dropped it. I sheepishly walked over to the plate. My dad was so cool, he just said, "Son, the game ain't over." He threw a pitch. Everybody started cheering, and I missed. He threw it again. I missed again. About 15 pitches later, my dad threw it right down the middle, and I went whack and knocked it into left field. I stood at home plate. My dad said, "What are you doing? Run." Okay, where's first base? I had never been there. I ran down to first base just in time to see Aunt Emma, the left fielder, throw the ball into center field. I thought, cool, I'm going to get a double. I ran to second base just in time to see Todd, a pretty good athlete playing center field, throw the ball into right field. As I ran to third base, I think I suspected they were screwing up on purpose. It was what I now call a conspiracy of grace to make sure I got home safe. But at this point, all I knew was they've thrown the ball to a blind guy and I'm going to score. I rounded third and sprinted toward home. And when I got about 10 feet away, I dove for the plate, slid across and jumped up. I dusted myself off, feeling good for the first time in 4 hours. And then I saw him. About 5 feet in front of me was my dad. He'd gotten down on one knee so we were the same height. Tears were streaming down his face. My dad held out his arms and said, "Son, you're safe at home." I threw myself into his arms. He picked me up and whispered in my ear, "I told you the game wasn't over." That day turned into one of the best days of my life. My relatives ran into the infield. As the sun set on this little baseball field in Nowhere, Iowa, they carried me off the field cheering.